In the IELTS speaking test, how would you answer the question, what do you do? Although we've covered several similar questions in previous episodes, today we're going to focus on ways to answer this question from the perspective of being unemployed, a job seeker, or someone who does unpaid work. Hi, my name's Vic and this is episode 11 of the IELTS with Vic podcast. If you would like a free copy of the podcast transcript, check out the link in the show notes. Today's question is, what do you do? Which is similar to asking, what is your job? If you haven't already listened to episode 1, you might want to check that out later, as it covers a whole host of ways to talk about doing paid work. Alternatively, check out episode 5 for language to talk about being a student. Today's focus, though, is going to be talking about the various other ways we can answer the question, what do you do? Let's start with being unemployed or being a job seeker. If you are someone who would like to be working but currently isn't, then you could use either of these labels to talk about your current status. For example, I'm currently unemployed, or I'm currently a job seeker. Alternatively, you could say I'm currently out of work, or at the moment I'm looking for work. You might decide you want to give a little information about the context. Here are a few sentences that might be relevant to some of you listening. I was made redundant from my previous job, so I'm currently looking for something new. I quit my previous job because it was too stressful, and I'm now searching for my next opportunity. My fixed-term contract came to an end, so I'm now in the process of applying for jobs. Those are a few different ways that you can talk about looking for work, if that is relevant to your current situation. Alternatively, perhaps you are someone whose daily work revolves around the home. There are various terms that you will encounter in English which have similar meanings and all relate to being a homemaker. We can talk about being a housewife, which is defined by the Cambridge Online Dictionary as a woman whose work is inside the home, doing the cleaning, cooking, etc., and who usually does not have any other job. Or being a house husband, which is similarly defined as a man who stays at home and cleans the house, takes care of the children, etc., while his partner goes out to work. We use these terms with the I'm a sentence structure, so I'm a housewife or I'm a house husband. Two other related terms are stay-at-home mum and stay-at-home dad. If you describe yourself or someone else as a stay-at-home parent, it means the person is someone who stays at home to take care of their children rather than going out to work. Again, we use the I'm a sentence structure, so I'm a stay-at-home mum or I'm a stay-at-home dad. If you wanted to give a little extra information, you could say something about what that involves, such as how many children you're raising or other family members you take care of. Here are a couple of examples. I'm a full-time house husband, taking care of our 2 young sons and a very energetic pet dog. I'm a stay-at-home mum, looking after our baby daughter and taking care of all the housework. You may have noticed 2 uses of the phrase taking care of just then. It's worth noting that they have slightly different meanings in these 2 sentences. Taking care of can mean to protect someone or something and provide the things that person or thing needs, such as taking care of the children. And it can also mean to deal with something, such as housework. If you are taking care of a family member, such as an elderly relative, or someone with a disability, for example, you might feel it is more appropriate to refer to yourself as a full-time or part-time carer. Again, you might want to give a little context in the test to expand your answer. For example, I'm a stay-at-home mum with a 2-year-old son and a part-time carer for my elderly parents. They live close to me and I go to their house every day to cook and clean for them. Another activity that might be relevant is volunteering. For example, many young people in my country choose to volunteer with a charity when they finish college to develop their work experience and do something meaningful with their time. We talk about being a volunteer, so the construction would be I am a volunteer. We can also use volunteer as a verb, so that would be I volunteer. One way to expand this answer in the exam would be to say who you volunteer for and what you do. For example, when I was at college, I volunteered for cancer research as a store assistant. I used to serve customers and organise the stock in the shop. That was a real example from my life in past time, but let's have a fictional example in present time. The pattern we're using is to volunteer for someone as something. I volunteer for the local library at the weekends as a storyteller. I read children's books to a small group of parents and toddlers, which I really enjoy. I added a couple of extra little nuggets into that answer by saying when I volunteer and also how I feel about it. Giving these details allows me to expand my answer in a way that is still relevant to the question, whilst demonstrating more English. Finally then, you might be retired, meaning that you have finished working. The straightforward way to express this is simply to say, I'm retired. However, we probably want to say a bit more than this in the exam. You might want to say something about your income, such as, I get a state pension, I live off a private pension, I'm currently living off my savings, I live with my family and they cover my expenses, or I'm technically retired, but I still do some part-time work. Or perhaps you could develop your answer by saying what you do with your time as a retired person. Some of the following might feel appropriate. Because I'm retired, I like to take things easy and I spend lots of time relaxing. Since I retired, I have been busier than when I was at work. I have so many appointments with friends that I am never at home. Now that I've retired, I have much more time for my hobbies and interests. For example, recently I've taken up painting. Because life is complex, you might actually have a number of different roles in your own life. Perhaps you juggle work, studying, and caring responsibilities. It's entirely up to you how you choose to answer the question, what do you do? And which of your life roles you choose to focus on. As I said earlier, you might want to revisit episodes 1 and 5 for other phrases relevant to this question. To summarise today's topics then, you could talk about being a job seeker, giving some context if you like. Alternatively, you could talk about being a homemaker, again giving a little context if it feels relevant. Other things we might talk about, if they're relevant, are volunteering activities or being retired. In a future episode, we're going to return to this topic again, but with a focus on how to answer if you are self-employed, a freelancer, or an entrepreneur. So make sure you subscribe via either YouTube or Spotify, and sign up for my free newsletter via my IELTS blog so that you don't miss out on future content. Now that we're coming to the end of this episode, I highly recommend taking a few minutes to create your own answer to the question, what do you do? If you would like some feedback, you can post your answer in the comments section. So go ahead, tell us about what you do in the comments. Thanks for joining me today, and don't forget, if you want a free copy of the podcast transcript, then head over to my IELTS blog and fill in the form. See you next episode for more phrases and tips to level up your IELTS speaking test score and achieve your English learning goals. Thanks for listening and have a great day.